I was driving home after a 12-hour shift. Totally exhausted, all I wanted was to get to my house. That's when I turned onto my private road and saw them. 3 massive yellow bulldozers stretched across the asphalt like mechanical dinosaurs, completely blocking the path to my home. These weren't small machines, they were huge Cat D8 bulldozers, each one weighing over 80,000 pounds. Their steel blades formed into a perfect wall that could stop a freight train. I sat in my patrol car with the engine idling, staring at this impossible sight. In 12 years as county sheriff, I'd seen a lot of crazy things. But coming home to find 3 bulldozers blocking my own private road? That was a new one. Behind the machines, I could see a woman in a bright pink business suit directing 3 men in hard hats. Even from a distance, I recognized that perfectly styled blonde hair and those aggressive hand gestures that had been making my life miserable for months. Victoria Manning, president of the Willowbrook Heights Homeowners Association. The woman who thought she owned the entire county and everyone in it. She spotted my patrol car and walked toward me with that smug smile I'd grown to hate, her designer heels clicking on MY asphalt like she owned the place. "Sheriff Coleman," she called out cheerfully, waving like we were old friends. "Perfect timing. I was hoping you'd see our traffic solution in action." I rolled down my window and tried to keep my voice calm. After 12 years in law enforcement, I'd learned that the best way to handle crazy people was to stay professional until you had all the facts. "Mrs. Manning, what exactly is going on here?" She gestured proudly at the bulldozers like she was showing off a new car. "We've implemented a permanent traffic management system for this road. These machines will ensure that unauthorized vehicles can't use our community access route." "Your community access route?" "Well, the road that serves our community needs. We've determined that unrestricted traffic on this route creates safety hazards and noise pollution for Willowbrook Heights residents." I looked at the 3 bulldozers again, then back at her. "Ma'am, this is my private road. I own it. It's recorded in the county deed as Coleman Road." Her smile got wider and more condescending. "Oh, Sheriff, I think there might be some confusion about property rights and public access laws. It's quite complicated, really." That's when I realized this woman had completely lost her mind. She'd spent what had to be thousands of dollars to rent 3 bulldozers and block the road to my own house. And she was talking to me like I was too stupid to understand property law. "Mrs. Manning, I need you to move these machines immediately." "I'm afraid that's not possible. The equipment will remain in place until we've resolved the traffic issues on this route." I turned off my patrol car and stepped out, feeling that familiar cold anger that comes when someone pushes too far. But before I could say anything else, my radio crackled. "Sheriff Coleman, we have a domestic disturbance on Oak Street. Suspect may be armed. Need you to respond code 3. I looked at the bulldozers blocking my driveway, then at Victoria's smug face, then at my radio. Duty called and I had to respond. But this wasn't over. "Mrs. Manning, these machines better be gone when I get back." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Sheriff, I don't think you understand the situation here. This is a community decision supported by property owners who've invested millions of dollars in this area. One person's convenience doesn't outweigh everyone else's safety." I got back in my patrol car and drove to handle the domestic call, but my mind kept returning to those 3 bulldozers. How had things gotten this insane? How had one entitled woman decided she could block a county sheriff's private road with heavy construction equipment? To understand that, I need to take you back 6 months to when this whole nightmare began. My name is David Coleman, and I've been the elected county sheriff for Harrison County, Ohio for 12 years. I've dealt with every kind of criminal, from petty thieves to murderers, from drug dealers to domestic terrorists. But nothing in my law enforcement career prepared me for dealing with Victoria Manning and the Willowbrook Heights HOA. The trouble started when Willowbrook Heights was built on the land adjacent to my property. It was a luxury subdivision with 47 houses, each one starting at $650,000, designed for wealthy retirees and young professionals who wanted to live in the country but still have all the city amenities. My private road, officially recorded as Coleman Road, ran along the eastern edge of their development. I'd owned this road for 18 months, and it was clearly marked with private property signs and no trespassing warnings every 100 yards. But some of the new Willowbrook Heights residents had discovered that my road provided a convenient shortcut to the main highway, cutting about 3 minutes off their commute to town. Instead of using the subdivision's main entrance, they'd started cutting through my property like it was a public thoroughfare. At first, it was just a few cars here and there. I figured it was new residents who didn't realize it was private property. I put up more signs, bigger signs that specifically said, "Private road, and through traffic violators will be prosecuted." The traffic got worse. Soon I was seeing 20 or 30 cars a day using my road as their personal shortcut. They'd speed through at 45 miles per hour, kicking up dust and gravel, leaving trash, and generally treating my property like their private highway. That's when I started getting the complaints. The first letter came from Victoria Manning on official Willowbrook Heights letterhead. Dear Sheriff Coleman, several residents have expressed concerns about the condition and safety of Coleman Road. As this route serves as secondary access for our community, we believe it requires immediate attention regarding speed limit posting and enforcement, road surface maintenance and repair, traffic calming measures to protect pedestrians, and noise mitigation during early morning and evening hours. We look forward to working with you to address these community safety issues. I read that letter 3 times, getting angrier each time. She was complaining about the condition of MY Road that her residents were using illegally, and demanding that I fix it for their convenience. I called the number on the letterhead. A woman with a sharp, entitled voice answered. Willowbrook Heights HOA, Victoria Manning speaking. Mrs. Manning, this is Sheriff Coleman. I received your letter about Coleman Road. Oh, wonderful. I'm so glad you're calling. We have several urgent concerns that need addressing. Ma'am, let me stop you right there. Coleman Road is my private property. Your residents are trespassing when they use it. Long pause. I think there might be some confusion about public access rights and community use standards. There's no confusion. It's private property. I have the deed. Well, Sheriff, when a road serves multiple properties and provides community access, the legal situation becomes quite complex. There are easement laws, prescriptive use doctrines, public necessity standards. She was talking to me like I was some country bumpkin who didn't understand property law. Me. The county sheriff who'd been dealing with property disputes for over a decade. Mrs. Manning, your residents need to stop using my road. Period. I don't think that's reasonable or legal, Sheriff. We'll need to discuss this further. She hung up. The next week I put up a gate. Not a big gate, just a simple metal barrier with a lock, positioned right at the entrance to my road where it met the county highway. Clear message, private property, keep out. 2 days later, I came home to find the gate had been cut with bolt cutters and was lying in the ditch. Someone had also spray-painted public access on my private property signs. I installed a bigger gate. Steel posts set in concrete, heavy-duty chain and lock, security cameras to catch whoever was vandalizing my property. 3 days later, the new gate was gone. Not cut, gone. Someone had brought equipment to dig up the concrete posts and haul away the entire gate system. That's when Victoria escalated to phase 2 of her campaign. I started getting official complaints filed against me with the county. Environmental violations for blocking public access to recreational waterways. Noise complaints for operating vehicles during restricted hours on my own property. Safety violations for maintaining hazardous road conditions on community access routes. Every complaint was signed by Victoria Manning and concerned Willowbrook Heights residents. Every complaint required me to respond officially, file paperwork, and waste time defending my right to control my own property. Then came the phone calls to my office. Harrison County Sheriff's Department. Yes, I need to report reckless driving on Coleman Road. A sheriff's vehicle was observed traveling at unsafe speeds through a residential area. My own deputies were getting calls complaining about me driving too fast on my own private road. Next, Victoria started showing up at county commission meetings, demanding they investigate my abuse of power in property matters. She claimed I was using my position as sheriff to intimidate residents who were simply trying to access community resources. Sheriff Coleman has created a hostile environment for law-abiding citizens, she told the commissioners. He's using his badge to bully people who are exercising their legal rights to community access. The county attorney had to explain to her again that Coleman Road was private property and I had every right to restrict access. But Victoria kept coming back month after month, with new complaints and new demands. That's when she started targeting my job directly. She filed a formal complaint with the state attorney general, claiming I was using county resources for personal disputes. She demanded an investigation into my pattern of harassment against community members. She contacted the local newspaper, giving interviews about the rogue sheriff, who was abusing his power to deny citizens their rights. She even tried to get a petition going to have me removed from office, claiming I was unfit to serve because of my hostile attitude toward community needs. All of this because I wouldn't let her and her neighbors use my private road as their personal shortcut. The situation reached a breaking point 3 weeks before the bulldozer incident. I was working late at the office when my secretary buzzed me. "Sheriff, there's a Victoria Manning here to see you. She says it's urgent." I sighed. "Send her in." Victoria walked into my office wearing a designer suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. She sat down across from my desk without being invited and pulled out a leather folder. "Sheriff Coleman, I think it's time we resolved this situation like adults." "I'm listening." "The Willowbrook Heights HOA board has authorized me to make you an offer. We're prepared to pay you $50,000 for a permanent easement allowing community access to Coleman Road." I stared at her. "You want to buy the right to use my road?" "We want to formalize the access arrangement that already exists. $50,000 is very generous for a simple easement. The access arrangement that already exists is called trespassing." Her smile got tighter. "Sheriff, be reasonable. Our residents have been using that road for months. Under Ohio law, continued use can establish prescriptive easement rights. Not on clearly marked private property with posted no trespassing signs. That's debatable. And expensive to litigate." I leaned back in my chair. "Are you threatening to sue me?" "I'm offering you a chance to profit from a situation that's going to happen with or without your cooperation. Our residents need access to that road. They're going to use it regardless of your signs and gates. And if I refuse your generous offer?" Victoria's mask finally slipped. "Then we'll do whatever is necessary to ensure our community's safety and property values aren't damaged by one person's unreasonable attitude." "Is that a threat?" She stood up and smoothed her skirt. "It's a promise, Sheriff. This isn't over." 2 weeks later she made good on that promise. I'd been called to a 3-car accident on the interstate and was dealing with traffic control, witness statements, and a drunk driver who thought he could fight 2 state troopers and win. It was a long, complicated scene that kept me busy for over 4 hours. When I finally headed home around 8 p.m., tired and ready for the day to be over, I turned onto my private road and saw them. 3 massive bulldozers positioned across the asphalt like steel mountains, completely blocking access to my property. Victoria Manning standing behind them with 3 construction workers, all of them looking very pleased with themselves. I parked my patrol car and walked toward the blockade, trying to process what I was seeing. The machines were enormous, Cat D8 bulldozers that cost more than most people's houses to rent, let alone buy. Each one weighed over 80,000 pounds and stood nearly 12 feet tall. "Mrs. Manning," I called out, "what exactly are you doing?" She walked toward me with that infuriating smile, her heels clicking on my asphalt. "Sheriff Coleman. Perfect timing. We've implemented a permanent traffic management solution. You've blocked my road with bulldozers. We've installed traffic calming infrastructure to address the safety concerns raised by community members." I looked at the 3 massive machines again. Traffic calming infrastructure. Exactly. These barriers will prevent unauthorized high-speed traffic from endangering Willowbrook Heights residents. One of the construction workers, a big guy in a hard hat, walked over. "Ma'am, we've got the machines positioned like you wanted. You need anything else?" Victoria nodded. "Perfect, thank you. The county will handle any removal requests through proper channels." I stared at her. "You think the county is going to remove these machines from my private property?" "I think proper procedures need to be followed. Environmental impact assessments, community input sessions, safety evaluations, these things take time." That's when I realized the depth of her delusion. She actually believed she could block my road with heavy construction equipment and force me to go through months of bureaucratic nonsense to get access to my own home. "Mrs. Manning, I'm ordering you to remove these machines immediately." "I'm afraid that's not your decision to make, Sheriff. This is a community safety matter that requires proper oversight." I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of the bulldozers, their license plates, the construction crew, and Victoria herself. "What's the name of your construction company?" I asked the foreman. He looked uncomfortable. "Hartley Construction, sir." "And who authorized this work?" He pointed at Victoria. "She did. Said she had all the permits and county approval." I looked at Victoria. "What permits?" She pulled out a folder. "Emergency Traffic Management Authorization, Community Safety Enhancement Approval, and Temporary Infrastructure Installation Permits." I took the papers and looked them over. They were complete nonsense, fake forms with official-looking letterheads but no actual authority behind them. She created her own permits and convinced the construction crew they were legitimate. "These aren't real permits, Mrs. Manning. I think you'll find they're completely valid. I think you'll find yourself under arrest for fraud, trespassing, and obstruction of justice." That's when her smug confidence finally cracked. You can't arrest me for protecting community safety. Watch me. I reached for my handcuffs, but the foreman from Hartley Construction stepped forward. Hold on, Sheriff. We were told this lady had county authorization for this work. If these permits are fake, we're pulling out immediately. Smart man, I told him. Mrs. Manning, you're under arrest. You can't do this. I have rights. I represent 37 homeowners who won't stand for this abuse of power. I turned her around and cuffed her hands behind her back while reading her rights. The construction crew was already starting up their bulldozers to move them off my property. Victoria Manning, you're under arrest for criminal trespass, filing false documents, fraud, obstruction of justice, and harassment. You have the right to remain silent. As I walked her to my patrol car, she was still ranting about community rights and abuse of power. The construction crew was loading their equipment onto flatbed trucks, shaking their heads about crazy rich ladies who think they can fake government permits. But Victoria's arrest was just the beginning. When I ran her background for the booking report, I discovered something interesting. Mrs. Victoria Manning had a history. 3 previous addresses in 3 different states. 3 previous incidents of HOA disputes that escalated to criminal charges. A pattern of behavior involving harassment, false complaints, property disputes, and abuse of legal processes. In Florida, she'd been convicted of filing false police reports against neighbors who wouldn't sell their houses to a developer she was working with. In Texas, she'd been arrested for trespassing after repeatedly entering other people's properties to document code violations for HOA enforcement. In Arizona, she'd been sued successfully for harassment and defamation after conducting a campaign against an elderly man who wouldn't join the community association. Victoria Manning was a professional HOA troublemaker who moved from place to place, causing problems until communities got fed up and she had to relocate. When I shared this information with the Willowbrook Heights HOA board, they were shocked. They'd elected her president based on her promises to maintain property values and community standards. They had no idea they'd put a serial harasser in charge of their organization. The board voted unanimously to remove her from office and terminate her membership in the community. They also voted to reimburse me for the costs of dealing with her harassment campaign and to ensure none of their residents would use Coleman Road without my permission. Victoria spent 3 days in county jail before making bail. When she got out, she found eviction notices on her door and a restraining order prohibiting her from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my property. At her trial 2 months later, she represented herself and spent 20 minutes lecturing the judge about community rights and property owner responsibilities. The judge listened patiently, then sentenced her to 6 months in county jail, 2 years probation, and restitution for the costs of her harassment campaign. Mrs. Manning, the judge said, you seem to believe that wanting something gives you the right to take it. That's not how property law works. That's not how community association law works. And that's certainly not how you treat a county sheriff who's been more patient with you than you deserved. Victoria was also banned from serving on any HOA board in Ohio for 5 years and required to attend anger management classes. The Hartley Construction Company sent me a bill for $2,400, the cost of transporting 3 bulldozers to block my road for 6 hours. I forwarded it to Victoria's lawyer. Today, Coleman Road remains private property with clear signage and a functioning gate system. The Willowbrook Heights residents use their own entrance and exit like normal people. My evening commute is peaceful again, winding through the trees to my house where no one bothers me unless I invite them. The new HOA president, a retired teacher named Bob Henderson, stopped by last month to apologize personally for Victoria's behavior. Sheriff Coleman, we had no idea what kind of person we'd put in charge. The board wants you to know that we respect your property rights completely, and if any of our residents cause you problems, you call me directly. I appreciate that, Bob. And Sheriff? Thank you for handling this professionally. A lot of people in your position might have handled Victoria differently. He was right. I could have made her life much more difficult than I did. But 12 years in law enforcement had taught me that the best revenge against bullies is simply enforcing the law fairly and consistently. Victoria Manning moved back to Florida after her jail sentence. I heard through the grapevine that she's already been elected to another HOA board and is back to her old tricks. But she learned one important lesson in Harrison County. When you mess with someone's private property, make sure you know who you're dealing with first. Some people have more power than you think. And some people know exactly how to use it when pushed too far. Where are you watching this from? Drop your city in the comments, and let me know if you've ever dealt with an entitled neighbor who thought they could push you around. Because this story isn't just about one sheriff and one crazy HOA president. This is about standing up to bullies, protecting your rights, and remembering that sometimes the best way to handle entitled people is to let them dig their own hole deep enough to bury themselves. The road stays private at my place. Private and peaceful, just like it was always meant to be. And that's a lesson worth learning, every single time.